Voting is our capability to have a peaceful transfer of power. If you don't have that, the alternatives are revolutions.
We call them voting machines, but they're nothing more than obsolete computers.
2002 is when they put them in service.
A commonly used argument, they are never connected to the internet.
No voting machines are connected to the internet.
Not connected to the internet.
Not connected to the internet, and therefore cannot be attacked.
Oh, it wants to go to internet. That's very nice.
In 2016, we know that Russian actors targeted state election systems.
When people say no votes were changed, it misses the point.
Imagine you go in and flip the digits of everybody's address.
When you prevent people from casting a ballot, you've hacked an election.
Hackers are a wonderful resource. Every voting machine in this room is in use in next election. We are here 3 days a year. The real adversaries, they run it 24/7 with massive funding.
Kari takes it personally when people do stupid things with technology. What do you think the security pin is?
The upgrade to 111111. That was not a joke.
We may be buying the world's best 20th century military when the battlefront is election security.
I had full access. I could have changed any vote.
It's called a kill chain. Weaponization, paralyzation, when the governments cannot take action, that's when you finish the target.
Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode, a live episode of Reading Epic Threads. Kind of a bonus episode because, let's face it, I've been off, kind of gone for a few days, had to attend a funeral, and now I'm back. So, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, and today is April 15th, 2025 at 11:02 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Speaking of daylight time, no, we don't want permanent daylight time. That's retarded. We want permanent standard time like they have in Arizona. I am not uncertain about this in any event. I want to do some election integrity stuff. So it's going to be mostly Seth Keshel, of course. That Harry Hursty and Philip Stark HBO trailer that you just saw is for Kill Chain, and watching it again really strikes me. They were showing you in Kill Chain, hey, these machines are designed for pure fraud. And then Harry Hursty and Philip Stark came out and said, oh, and by the way, for the 2020, no fraud. We didn't find shit. People are freaking criminals, man. They were obviously compromised. Everything about this is fake. Our elections are fraudulent. There are no real elections. Anytime your guy wins, it's just because, I don't know, people in charge decided to let the guy win. I don't know how it works, but I know that the elections are not valid. That's simple. They're not valid, period. The burden of proof lies upon those who claim to have the consent of the governed, because government is force, is violence. If they cannot prove it, they do not have the consent of the governed, and this is just a clown show dictatorship. Let's start by talking about the fact that I love all of you, and the fact that I have Epic Moisture Creamy Body Butter all over my face. Guys, go to Epic Moisture. Go to tulipblooms.shop, because we're going to be halting shipment of the Epic Moisture. This is the lavender. We're going to be halting shipment of the Epic Moisture Creamy Body Butter. So make sure to go to Tulip Blooms. Get your hands on the body butter today. We've got fresh sandalwood. We've got fresh orange. We've got fresh almond, which turns out that almond is our best seller. People love the almond. They also love the almond bar soap. So make sure to toss a bar soap on there. We're giving away a bar soap free with every purchase. Don't forget that. And make sure to use promo code Shapiro to pry $1 from my grasping hands. Actually, you're prying 10% from my grasping hands. All right, let's just jump in. And we're going to start with, I think, Emerald Robinson. Does that sound right? Yeah. R.I.P. Chris Krebs. So you probably know old Chris Krebs. Let me make sure I've got access to the whole piece. All right. This isn't that long. So Emerald Robinson seems like a good person. She got real chummy with the infiltrating intelligence asset Naomi Wolf, but let's face it, I did too. So can't blame people for getting chummy with intelligence assets. All right, let's do this thing. From Emerald.tv. R.I.P. Chris Krebs, America's least secure cybersecurity expert. Krebs was the ultimate mouthpiece for America's censorship network created by the Biden regime. Shortly after the 2020 election, CISA Director Chris Krebs publicly announced that the election was the most secure in history. He went on every news show in America to repeat that statement. Even after he was fired by President Trump for making these highly inaccurate statements, Krebs put the entire credibility of CISA, which is a small office of the much larger Department of Homeland Security, on the line with his public statements. President Trump fired Krebs almost immediately. Donald J. Trump on Twitter. The recent statement by Chris Krebs on the security of the 2020 election was highly inaccurate in that there were massive improprieties and fraud, including dead people voting, poll watchers not allowed into polling locations, glitches in the voting machines, which changed votes from Trump to Biden, late voting, and many more. Therefore, effective immediately, Chris Krebs has been terminated as director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Krebs never explained the fact that vote counting in multiple swing states was halted for no apparent reason on election day, nor has anyone explained why Trey Traynor, the chair of the Federal Election Commission, declared on TV on November 6th, 2020, that election observers have not been allowed into the polling locations in a meaningful way, and that if they're not, the law is not being followed, making this an illegitimate election. In the years that followed that stolen election, and long after, 56% of America's voters believed that cheating seriously tainted the result of the 2020 election, there remained one lonely figure who still insisted on TV that all election fraud is imaginary and that Joe Biden legitimately received 81 million votes. Chris Krebs. Krebs remains the world's least secure cybersecurity expert, and that unfortunate title gets bestowed when you have no formal training in cybersecurity or computer science. It's always hard to talk about that technical stuff for TV interviews, especially when you have an environmental science degree and you're faking it. Ooh, video.
One of the most obvious grifters in the last few years is a disgraced Trump administration official named Chris Krebs. Chris Krebs worked as a cybersecurity official at the Department of Homeland Security, and he was fired by President Trump for saying dumb things like, the 2020 election was the most secure election in history. Here's the joke. Chris Krebs is still saying these dumb things on TV in 2022. Watch.
It's completely and utterly surreal. None of these lies have been substantiated to any extent. Every single one of them has been debunked.
Chris Krebs was director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, charged with protecting the 2020 election. He called it the most secure election in American history, and days later was fired by President Trump.
How is this even possible? How is it possible that Chris Krebs and the people at 60 Minutes don't know that CISA and DHS have issued warnings in 2022 that America's voting machines have security flaws that must be fixed by state election officials? That bulletin is on the DHS website right now. You can go see it. This is happening because Chris Krebs is not really a cybersecurity expert at all. Chris Krebs has no formal training in either computers or elections. In fact, Chris Krebs has a degree in environmental sciences and a law degree. He has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to cybersecurity. Now, my sources at the Department of Homeland Security tell me that Chris Krebs had a job there in cybersecurity for one reason. He was the close personal friend of Chad Wolf, the acting DHS secretary. That's right, Chad Wolf just wanted to give his liberal buddy a job because he had an environmental science degree. Now, this explains why 2 years after the least secure election in American history, Chris Krebs is still appearing on corporate media outlets claiming to be a cybersecurity expert. As this picture shows, Chris Krebs spends his time gaslighting Americans about the integrity of our voting systems while wearing socks for metrosexuals and your grandfather's orthopedic shoes.
Apparently, Chris Krebs isn't aware that electronic voting machines are vulnerable to hacking, or that his own agency, CISA, has been forced to issue software vulnerability warnings to state election officials. This stuff is literally sitting on CISA's website right now. Of course, you have this.
It's completely and utterly surreal. None of these lies have been substantiated to any extent. Every single one of them has been debunked.
Chris Krebs was director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, charged with protecting the 2020 election. He called it the most secure election in American history, and days later was fired by President Trump. He now has a cyber consulting firm and is a contributor for CBS News. We showed him a press conference held 2 days after his firing at the headquarters of the Republican National Committee, when Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and others continued their attacks on Dominion machines and software.
It can set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden.
Do you remember watching that?
Yeah, I tweeted about it immediately afterwards. I think I said something along the lines that was the most insane and dangerous 45 minutes of TV in, American history, effectively.
How secure was the 2020 election?
Let me put it this way. It was the most litigated. It was the most scrutinized. It was the most audited. This election was put through the ringer from so many different directions. And what I tend to like to say is, don't listen to me. Listen to Bill Barr. Bill Barr said it. He was then the Attorney General of the United States.
This is what Bill Barr later said to the January 6th committee.
These claims on the Dominion voting machines, and they were idiotic claims. I saw absolutely zero basis for the allegations, but they were made in such a sensational way that they obviously were influencing a lot of people.
I want to show our viewers some of the video that our CBS affiliate out in Arizona filmed multiple incidents of possible voter intimidation. They had armed individuals wearing tactical gear, as you can see there, camped out by a voter drop box. There were other two with handguns that were concealed yesterday. So some of this is driven towards a very specific conspiracy that emerged, right? So, Chris, how does the FBI head this off and not allow it to go into political violence?
Well, I think the important thing here is that if any voter or election official sees these sort of things happening in Arizona, they make a report. They tell the the relevant officials, and they can investigate, and they can look at these people, they can investigate, and then there's a deterrent
measure. It takes the guy with the tactical gear before that happens.
Well, and that's the biggest challenge here, as I see it, is that the continued efforts to delegitimize the 2020 election are resulting in candidates that are incentivized to push these lies, but also then you have a radicalization and activation across the voter base that are effectively, this is performative. This doesn't happen. the claims of mules and ballot trafficking, it doesn't happen, particularly in a way that someone like this would be able to detect anything. Moreover, what's happening is the people that are being accused of ballot trafficking or being a mule actually report it to the officials and say, here's my name, here's my contact information. I was accused of this. Would any legitimate fraudster or mule do that and then report that on themselves? Of course not. So it's all performative. And unfortunately, I am concerned that it results in violence.
Chaos is the point.
Patrick, you are muted. Quinny63, $17. With love for all you do. God bless you, DGS0207 and C. Campbell 78. Anyway, yeah, I've been muted. Well, how long have I been muted? Probably quite a few minutes. Anyway, it is what it is. Sorry about that. Wow, I've been muted for a long ass time, guys. Let's go back to the cripes. Well, I'd like to thank those of you who are actually still here. My goodness. That's my fault, guys. I apologize. That is not cool. But these things happen, and I'm going to go ahead and hop over to a piece from Seth Keshel, and I've got lots of them, but I'll do one. God, what a bummer that is. I realize now that I've been muted for a long time. All right, whatever. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to go to tulipblooms.shop. Don't forget to go to emerald.tv. She's done some really good work. Damn, that's a bummer. When I hit the mute button on my mic whenever I'm playing a video, because I don't want to create I don't want to create an echo. I'm sending an email to my wife real quick because apparently the power just went out. AshleyGunnels@gmail.com. There we go. Okay. Anyway, that is so freaking annoying. Sorry, guys. That bums me out. It's really bad. All right, let's see here. We're going to do another piece called Alaskan Investigation Reveals New Method of, I think I did this piece already. Never mind. Or not. I don't know. It looks kind of, I'm going to do Inside the Modern Election Casino. There we go. Love you guys. Thank you so much for jumping in and pointing it out. I need to start the program all over. I don't know. Let's see here. Just hit live and we'll get started with the next one. We're not muted now. All right. Here we go. From skeshel.substack.com. Inside the Modern Elections Casino, until further reform occurs, quasi-elections are about as peachy as it gets. I vividly recall being 18 years old and fresh out of high school when my dad took me down to Gulfport, Mississippi on the Gulf Coast for a business trip. Dad always merged business trips with places he could find gaming tables. After dinner that night, I returned to the room and went to sleep, waking up 8 hours later to find no Dad. I made my way down to the front of the casino and I had him paged, and up he came to the entrance. Turns out, Dad had won a few $1,000, hence his decision to stay up all night playing Let It Ride, a poker variant. All was well then, but there were plenty of times when Dad would get wiped out somewhere and come home preaching the need to tighten our belts that month. We always knew about the big wins, but rarely the extent of the gaping losses. I learned a lot about gambling from him. Even though I'm not much of a gambler these days, I'm good at poker, which pits player against player, and understand how to count cards and play perfect blackjack strategy. Blackjack, if played properly, gives the player the best odds in the house, 49%, but only if you play textbook strategy every time. What I learned is that while you can hit it big in the casino, those immaculate buildings on the Las Vegas Strip or even the Mississippi Gulf Coast didn't build themselves. And they don't bring you endless drinks out of charity or kindness. They want you to keep playing, because the more you play, the more that mathematics guarantees that they'll keep raking in the cash. It's not that you can't win, because clearly sometimes you can. It's that the system is designed to frequently spit out regularly positive outcomes in favor of the House, and even more favorably than planned when the players show up drunk, bet foolishly, or get too aggressive. This is the same system under which our elections take place. I realize that some of you fine Badlanders, oh, this is a Badlands guest piece, are going to take issue with my assessment here, given that it varies from Chris Paul's assessment that elections are straight up fake. After all, President Trump also referred to them as fake when he signed his recent executive order on elections. However, I'm not so far down the rabbit hole that I believe President Trump won an entirely fake election after dodging years of lawfare and even bullets designed to prevent him from becoming president again. Clearly, campaigning, vote getting, and fortune, as Machiavelli would say, played a role, albeit a declining one, in the 2024 presidential race. If you don't believe that, then we must dig much deeper into the conspiracy. Well, I'm going to pause for a second. I think what Chris Paul says, and I might be wrong, but I know I'm not, you cannot check the elections. The elections are a black box. Therefore, they are unverifiable in any way. That's just my opinion. Last week, I unleashed an X post that went viral with over 1.4 million views. The Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show got hold of it and concluded that Crawford would have won anyway, primarily because we don't have smoking gun examples of what Milwaukee County typically does in close races to pull from, and the count didn't press on with sudden reversals into the wee hours of Wednesday morning. Seth Keshel on Twitter. Brad Schiemel's 1.063 million votes last night was higher than any Democrat vote total in the history of any Wisconsin Supreme Court race. He lost by 10 points. Turnout ain't the issue, folks. Dems have mastered ballot harvesting over a lengthy early voting period and can figure out with basic math where their opponent is likely to wind up in order to get over the top. This country cannot survive with mail-in voting. Notice how Butt Sexton insists that we place the burden of proof upon the people who are utterly unable to harvest evidence of any kind, because anytime they ask to see the fucking ballots, they get sued. Butt Sexton is a spook. I predicted Susan Crawford, the Democrat-endorsed candidate, would win by at least 5 points, and yes, my predictions now factor in the weighted advantages for candidates running with casino-like advantages like automatic voter registration, universal or excessive mail-in voting, and the most important condition of mail ballot fraud actions on the objective ballot harvesting, which may or may not be legal depending on the state. Crawford wound up suffocating her opponent by 10 points. In what has become an otherwise competitive state, blowing past Janet Prostasevitz's previous record for a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat held in a spring election by almost 300,000 votes, and smoking Schiemel's new record set concurrently in the process. To say Democrats have mastered mail-in ballot turnout in off-year elections when turnout is expected to be much lower is an understatement. In fact, 600,000 votes were all it took to win these races in 2018 to 2019 in the same state, which isn't growing in terms of population by any meaningful numbers. Elections are like casino games. Yes, you can win, as evidenced by President Trump residing at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue today. But what if we ran the 2024 election 10 times with slightly different variables each time? Would Trump win it every time? Almost certainly not. Remember, Harris lagged Biden's vote count in 44 states, but managed to eclipse him in the following 6 states: Utah, Maine, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Georgia. 4 of the 6 are critical battleground states, and Maine happened to have a crucial U.S. race that almost certainly got ripped off in the one district Trump carried for a single electoral vote. Meanwhile, she lagged Biden in California, her own home state, and New York by tremendous numbers, and in large red states like Florida and Texas, driving down her national ballot count substantially. Take away Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, and North Carolina from Trump's count, and what do you have? Trump at 264 electoral votes, or short of the requisite 270 electoral votes needed to win an election. It is also well known that Trump overperformed with minority voters, which are mostly black in the 4 states in consideration here, except for in Nevada, where they're mostly Hispanic or Asian, especially Filipino. Despite these losses, Democrats added more ballots to their presidential count in each of the 6 focus states listed above than they could come up with for Joe Biden in the COVID-plagued 2020 election cycle. This isn't even taking into consideration that Harris nearly matched Biden's tallies in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona. In 2024, the stars aligned for Trump, and he overcame a system that was concentrated on delivering winning totals in the battleground states only, rather than safe red or blue states, which were also flooded with counterfeit ballots in 2020. I believe, especially in the case of Pennsylvania, that this is largely because automatic voter registration, AVR, hasn't had enough time to fully sink in yet to ensure establishment candidates reap the benefits of casino loyalty. Automatic voter registration, if you're not aware, is the hallmark of a blue state. The automatic voter registration states went 18-2 for Biden in 2020, 243 electoral votes to 9, and Harris won only 5 electoral votes in 2024 that didn't operate under AVR, automatic voter registration. The system didn't want Harris topping Trump with 86 million votes this time around. This is why the media unleashed the narrative shortly before the election that she would lose the popular vote but win the Electoral College. It was teasing the plan to let solid red and solid blue states do what they would do, hence Florida 13 plus, Texas plus 14 for Trump, while battleground states would be 20-25. That possible outcome, if fulfilled, would have also carried the double impact of causing conservatives to curse the Electoral College and beg for a national popular vote, which is antithetical to the well-being of the Republic and another safety measure for the casino to have in the rulebook. Some candidates win. For now, elections must have believable outcomes, which is why you don't see effort, after primaries anyway, to tip elections in Oklahoma or Wyoming. Other candidates enter the elections casino and come up against the full force of the House, which sees ballots spun for 2 weeks and Carrie Lake told to go home, even though her internal numbers only had her running 2 points behind Trump in a state he won comfortably. This system is designed to work for the House, and most of the time it does, and in the event it fails in the most important race, minimize down-ballot impacts. It did this in Senate races in Wisconsin, Nevada, Michigan, Arizona, and in various races for U.S. House seats like in California, where 2 Democrats declared victory in December. Trump counted all the cards. Hit on soft 17. Doubled down on 10 and 11. Took a card on 16 and got up when the table got cold, leaving states like Minnesota, New Hampshire, Virginia, and New Mexico for Harris, who stayed around at the tables way too long and believed all the polls that had her winning states that have been running away from her party for over a decade. He also had a ton of luck, not only in surviving through the end of the election, but in taking the oath of office on January 20th, 2025. The moral of the story is, for the next 4 years, the deep staters in skimpy skirts and caked on makeup want to bring Trump's base a bunch of cheap liquor all night long, hoping to distract us with nonsense narratives meant to ride out the clock, because eventually someone who is not one of the most famous figures in history will run as the GOP presidential nominee, and we'll get to see exactly what it is the House has in terms of insurance. Without major, full-fledged reforms, Americans are doomed to quasi-elections when, in fact, what we need is full transparency, uniform federal rules, and major consequences for those who defy them. The themes in the casino story. The more you play, the more they'll rake in the cash. The consultants who exist for no other purpose than to serve as blind guides to candidates and suck up the cash of supporters while defending a broken system. A system designed to spit out favorable House outcomes, play enough Nevada-style elections with universal mail-in voting, ballot harvesting, and drop boxes, and you'll figure it out, especially if you mixed in ranked choice voting like Alaska or Maine do. Players showing up drunk. Think Kamala going after Florida or Texas, or conservatives going after modern Virginia or Minnesota when Pennsylvania is more winnable and much more critical. Coming against the full force of the House. Play blackjack and read the table's fine print. One table pays what another won't. Another won't pay you automatically if you hit blackjack. Little by little, the goalposts move. And then you can't win an election without a majority and multiple ballots, or the other team will decide to count for weeks with full media cover. Minimizing down ballot impacts. Can't stop Trump this time around, but we can get 3 or 4 Senate seats while everyone is celebrating and make the U.S. House majority so small nothing can get done. This is like when you're on a hot streak and you get offered tickets to the musical performance just so they can save their scalps on the floor. And that is Seth Keshel. Hope I'm not muted, y'all, because that would suck. Hi, guys. So, not muted? All right, good. Not muted. I'm going to check in to all you wonderful people. I want to apologize again for my brief bout with mutedness. Hit the thumbs up on this video if you would. We have Richard Rohrer who says, I'm here in Wisconsin, and Elon went to Green Bay and told them he knew about 400,000 fake Social Security numbers being used to vote. And that's the margin of victory, even after we turned up bigly. The election in Wisconsin. Read my piece at readingepicthreads.substack.com entitled, Wisconsin is a Crime Scene. Frickin', yeah. So Richard says also, here in Wisconsin, they ain't even hiding the theft of our elections. They just say, prove it. Yeah. Until we pull our heads out of our asses as a people and say, this is a burden of proof reversal fallacy. They can steal friggin' elections until the end of time. And Mr. CIA Butt Sexton can say, prove it, bitch. Frickin' spook faggot. All right. Let's do another one from old Seth. It's going to make me really angry. It's going to make me so furious. The power went out at my house. Isn't that nifty? All right. Next article. Oh, don't forget to go to epicminerals.net and use promo code Shapiro. In fact, there might be 1 or 2 of you who haven't seen this. What's that in the sky? I bet it's familiar to you. Oh, yes, it's just a long white trail. It's a plane. And what's coming out of it? Contrails, simple condensation. That's totally normal, they tell us. And now we look closer. We have the ability to use Zoom cameras that live stream at the same time. What is that? That's not contrails. Oh no. That's poison. Poison being dumped into your lungs. Protect yourself. Zeolite Extra Spray with humic and fulvic acid from epicminerals.net. Promo code Shapiro. Don't forget, cure yourself with both colloidal silver and zeolite at epicminerals.net. And now from skeshel.substack.com, Missing the Forest for the Trees in Arizona, Part 2.0, 2025 edition. The details of controversial conversations are demanding explanation, but are constantly ignored for top-line sensation. I had to say sensation. It's too much rhyming. Who is running our federal and local governments if not the people? By Captain Seth Keshel. Last week, a controversial floor vote went down in the Arizona House of Representatives over a local issue in which Scottsdale's rights to make its own decisions in accordance with the wishes of citizens was usurped by the legislature. The issue, which involves a dispute over a local corporation, Axon, and housing, is likely to find its way into court and spark significant debate about overreach and the authority given to both the municipal governments and the legislature. On Saturday, I accompanied my better half, Representative Rachel Keshel, Arizona's 17th legislative district, to her monthly district meeting, which brings GOP leadership together to tackle local items and gives the opportunity for elected officials to brief party brass. District 17 has one GOP representative, Rachel, and a GOP senator, Vince Leach. Anyway, Rachel had voted no on the Axon bill favoring Scottsdale, but wound up voting with a group that lost 40-19 in the House. Leach plans to vote yes when given the opportunity in the Senate, insinuated that Rachel seems to be out of touch, given that she voted in a group that lost the vote by more than 2-1. Rachel popped back. Maybe we should check out the campaign donations then. Some GOP legislators who were no votes have offered testimony in which it is implied that such a vote would jeopardize that legislator's political career. Vote for us or we run you off. Nick Cupper, a freshman Republican from Surprise, and Air Force retiree, it's a place called Surprise, gave the most descriptive account of this coercive behavior and specifically noted the unwillingness to make the smallest of compromises to potentially sway his vote. Cupper's account, embedded below, along with feedback from others and the vote outcome, make it appear that the persuasive powers of outside entities outweigh those of the legitimate stakeholders, the people, who are outclassed by money, threats, and undue clout. Let's see how long this is. That's 2 minutes. We can check this out.
Representative Cupper.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. I have struggled with this bill a lot. I'm not going to try to sway anybody's vote one way or the other. Explain my vote as I should. I've had many people come to me, I think well-intentioned, and tell me that I need to vote yes for this bill. Some of those people, the way they've said it to me, have implied that I need to vote yes for it for my political career. And I will never vote for anything based on the politics of something. I will vote yes or no based on what I believe is right or wrong. This bill, I don't think should have ever come to our chamber. I think this is a situation that should have been dealt with at the lower level. I believe this is a city and a company issue. I do not want Axon to leave the state of Arizona. I like the company. I like what they do for our state. And I also believe that it's going to be much easier if Scottsdale doesn't want to have Axon there. There are 90 other cities in the state of Arizona that would probably be happy to have them. I spoke with the mayor of Surprise just this morning and said he said he is more than happy to have a conversation about bringing them to Surprise. That's my city. I asked for one change in this bill to get myself to a yes. There's one thing in this bill that if we change this, I believe could be a yes. This is a private property rights bill in my mind. And the one change I would need would be the population requirement. Right now, it has a minimum of 200,000, maximum of 500,000. That only fits roughly 4 cities in our state. If this is about private property rights, which is one of the ways it's been pitched to me, and I see it that way, then it should be the private property rights of every city in this state, not just a few cities. If personally, if I were to have the population limit changed, I would vote yes on this bill. But as it is right now, I cannot vote yes. This is nothing against Scottsdale. This is nothing against Axon. This is the bill as it's worded. And with that, I vote no.
For another example, check out Representative Joe Chaplick's floor tirade against what he called the most scandalous thing he'd seen in 5 years in the legislature. Chaplick was reportedly chastised by Axon's CEO, Rick Smith, personally. The simple fact that more people aren't saying time out and digging into the testimonies of Cupper and other dissenting Republicans alleging dirty play reminds me of last year's main political debacle in Arizona, which took place in January 2024. Kari Lake had recorded a personal conversation with then GOP Chairman Jeff DeWitt at some previous point, and when the audio went public, all hell broke loose. I am most closely aligned with Lake's faction and speed of Republican politics and consider myself firmly entrenched in that way of thought, as my regular readers will attest. However, my network is vast, and I also know plenty of Lake haters and those in between who try to ride political fences as much as possible. Needless to say, I heard both sides of this story when it broke out. Jeff DeWitt wanted to bribe Kari Lake. Kari Lake betrayed Jeff DeWitt's trust. How could we be doing this during an election year? I could go on, but you get the point. Everyone was playing politics when they should have been dialed into what was said in the actual conversation. The issue escalated. DeWitt resigned, and Gina Swoboda replaced him as Arizona GOP chair a few days later. Primaries continued on. The government tried to kill President Trump, and the election came and went. And so did the valuable opportunity to dig into the most important thing Chairman DeWitt said that could have actually shifted the window into how we engage in our political discourse. Politics, at least here in America, is supposed to consider and prioritize the will of the people in light of existing checks and balances. It should not be contorted and manipulated by outside forces seeking to pervert the process, whether through bribery, hard or soft, that's what she said, coercion, or outright threats of violence. Read what I posted in my January 2024 article about what the true outrage of the Lake DeWitt encounter should have been remembered as, for reference. Here's a post from X with the 10-minute audio release. You know, why don't we just do ourselves a big favor and get the audio? It's 10 minutes, and it would do us good. Check it out. This is the full audio. I mean, I'll play it at 1.25. Sound good?
They're gonna try to have me murdered.
Not either. Says well, man. If that stuff that came out last week is right about the cartel stuff. Right? They say the cartel's operating in 50 states right now, like all 50. You know? So
what's going on? Who is it? What?
Forget the who. Let me just tell you the what. I just say there are people calling around saying, "Gosh, no, they can't repeat this. Never repeat this." If you say no, don't say, "I got offered to buy out." Because then we lose our ability to get things done. Other in the future.
Here's my problem. Rather than just say, "Let's work with her. She's a great candidate," because they don't own me, and it pisses me off.
Yeah, it's not about ownership.
It's about control.
I know it's about control. It's about being on the team. I guess that's, you know what I mean?
They want to be on the team.
They want you to be on their team.
But if they're pushing a globalist agenda, I can't do that. So what do they want? What do they want me to do?
You want to stay opportunists. But I'll tell you what I can offer you. But I said you can do whatever you want. Talking about this. So the ask of me was, it's kind of fun. So the ask I got today from back east was, is there any companies out there or something that could just put her on the payroll and give her to keep her out? And I said, well, what do you want to do? Like, whatever we need to do.
This is about defeating Trump. And I think that's a bad thing for our country. DeSantis is not America first. This is about the final death blow to Trump. And I don't think that's good for our country.
And you know, I love Trump. I love Trump.
It's not good for our country, Jeff.
It's not. But at the same time, I'm not even sure Trump can win. I don't know if he can win. I think what it really comes down to for a lot of people, it's not really about like control or agenda. It's just about the ability to raise money to win. You know, if you really want to know, all of politics boils down to money. And even on their end, like what makes them the most money?
I know all these consultants don't want their payday to end, and I don't want to make a deal with these kind of people. This is a hill worth dying on. I'm not. If they're going to steal the election to make me and our movement go away, I'm not letting them do that. I owe it to the people of Arizona to carry their torch and their voice.
Or you don't go away, but you pause.
This is the battles right now, Jeff.
And you throw your coffers.
No, the battle is right now. The battle is right now, and we don't have time to pause on this battlefield.
You're not. What you can't scratch their back. It's not great.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to offer them, and they're sitting on people that have something to offer them. You know what I mean? It's just it's a back scratching club. That's all DC is. It's a big back scratching club. You're in no position to scratch anybody's back, and you've already made it known that if you get there, you're not going to scratch anybody's back. I don't scratch people's back. You know, I've been on the outs with a lot of people for a long time because I don't scratch backs. You know, where are we in 2 years if they steal the election again?
Listen to what you're saying. Why don't we do something about it so that we the people can pick our?
What can we do?
I'm not willing to accept that, and I'm going to be the biggest pain in these people. Go back and tell them that I'm running, and I'm going to be the biggest pain in their.
And I'm willing to tell them that.
And they're going to have to kill me to stop me.
I know. Look, and
you don't have to tell them that, but I don't think they will. But
I don't think that's the way they are.
Either they come around and try to work with me, or I'm just going to. That would entail not telling layman's telling me you got to distance yourself from Trump. No, you distance yourself from DeSantis.
He's all about that.
But what I'm saying is, don't tell people that I'm with Trump. Okay, I want to work for the betterment of Arizona. I'm not going to let these people back in DC tell me not to run. I'm not going to pause for 2 years. The battle is now. I'm offended by whoever these people are that they're trying to buy me out of.
Well, you should be honored.
But I'm offended that there's people back there who just don't get out of our country.
Do you understand that? You should be honored. That means they know how powerful you are.
Well, I can tell them
if
that.
If you weren't powerful, they wouldn't want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Right? You should be. Very few people get this.
I know. I'm pissed that they don't care more about our country. It's all about the mighty dollar to them. And that's offensive.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
They want to get Trump so bad. They want him out so bad.
Trump. This isn't about Trump. It's about you. It's about Trump.
It's
about you. It's not about Trump. Some people are on this.
Listen, I can win. Why don't you go back and tell them that I can win? And why don't they get behind me?
I see these things through a different lens. It's very personal to you. This was you. It was your name on the ballot. And I get that. And it's a very personal thing.
Well, I have a appointment coming up, and I have to work on my book.
Yeah.
I'm not good. I appreciate their concern.
Just to say, is there a number at which
I can be bought? That's what it's about.
You can take a pause for a couple years.
No.
And then go right back to what you're doing.
No. 10 million, 20 million, 30, no. A billion, no. This is not about money. This is about our country. I think it's disturbing that they would even, that anybody would think this is.
No, to be fair, even me, I'll say this. I want a fresh face right now for the reason that I've never seen anyone, I can't think of a single person in a federal race who's lost, ran again won. I can't think of it. If you can think of it, let me know.
I'm not going to let these people who hate our country tell me not to run. You should call them and tell them to get behind me. And they should get behind me.
I would happily say those words.
Yeah.
Do you think my words will carry any weight? No.
Okay. Well, did you think you would come in here and that I would be bought?
It's not being bought.
Yes, it is.
It's I think.
It is being bought. They are trying to buy me out of running. It's actually. I mean, all right. I'm flattered. I'm offended. I'm offended for our country. We have people like this who live here.
What I think is this: is it can give you an incredible opportunity to have a bigger voice to fight for stuff than you currently do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to deal with people like this. These people are un-American, and I think they're unethical, and I would be absolutely immoral if I did that.
Again,
that's immoral. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I, you know.
It's very powerful people that are willing to, they really want someone different. They want new names, whatever it is.
So they want Jim Lehman. That's a new name.
No, actually, that's not even, that's a possibility. They're even asking me. Like,
I know they've got all these new names, and I'm going to beat each and every one of them. Sorry, Jeff. Take it back to them.
oh,
I gotta get working. I love you, but I gotta get working.
all right. I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm just can't believe this.
Hey, again, be honored. Instead of them just look, instead of just them working to beat you, they're trying to like.
This is about getting Trump out.
Nah,
Yeah, it is.
Trump never wants.
What's about DeSantis? Getting DeSantis in. Getting DeSantis is getting Trump out.
You're reading too deep into it.
Well, let's see what happens. Maybe my case will go through. Maybe they'll do the right thing.
I hope so.
I do too. That's my first goal. But they can't have me in the governor's office because then we're going to root out some of this corruption. You know what it is? The people don't get to choose their elected officials unless they're pre-approved by the swamp. And the swamp doesn't pre-approve of me.
You need a strong party.
I think you should go public with this and then say, hey,
No.
these people don't want to, they don't want,
Then I turn my key in my car and I go.
tell them I'm not flattered. I'm offended that
Don't
they,
tell anybody we had this conversation.
I'm offended that they don't care about our country more.
I actually wish you just give me a counter offer this big. Give me a counter.
I can't be bought.
Come on.
I can't.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay, bye-bye.
It's important for us to listen to that again. I don't think that Jeff DeWitt belongs in society. I think he should be put in prison for the rest of his life. Everybody who engages in this behavior should not be allowed in society. Near the end of the audio at the 9:30 mark, this exchange occurs. Lake says, I think you should go public with this, and then say, hey, and DeWitt goes, no. Then I turn my key in my car and go, boom. The recording concludes with Lake being asked for a counter and her insistence that she can't be bought. Isn't that what people have always wanted for their elected or appointed officials? Not to be bought off and corrupted. We have come full circle in our idiocy when outrage over this audio surfacing prevails over the substance of what is being said. This is certainly not DeWitt's idea, and that can be discerned through the recording and through the unease in which he approaches Lake with this idea that she should sit out the 2024 election cycle, and because the folks back east have a new controllable political robot in mind to fill the open Senate seat once held by feckless Republican weakling Jeff Flake. What should have happened here is exactly what was suggested at the end of the call, that both Lake and DeWitt blow the lid off what the true problem in politics is. Outside influences control state politics through bribery, compromise, and coercion. Again, people are arguing about the impacts of the fallout. What will become of the state GOP in an election year has turned into the Republican city of Scottsdale got overruled by the Republican majority legislature, when in fact the main question should default to who the hell is threatening or buying the elected representatives of the people and preventing them from freely voting in the best interests of, and often in accordance with the wishes of, the people they swore to represent as their voice in government. If our elected officials or prominent party leaders are too afraid to make the right decisions, or at least exercise their votes freely without coercion, have we already crossed one bridge too far in the experiment for freedom and self-government? That is a great friggin' piece, man. It is so important for us to remember what happened on that audio recording. Unbelievable stuff, really. Just he didn't even feel bad about it. Just going in there and saying, "Hey, I'm a complete friggin' scumbag, and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to scumbag all over you and try to get you to turn scumbag with me." There's really just it's very difficult sometimes to stay positive when we know that the people in charge of the apparatus are like this. I'm going to do one from Dellingpole, and then I'll jump on out. But don't forget, guys, tulipblooms.shop. Free soap with every purchase. You have to put it in your cart. And we're not discontinuing soap, but we are definitely tamping down on the number of different soaps that we're offering. We've got one almond soap that sells like friggin' hotcakes. People use it and they want more of it. It's the almond. People are nuts about almond. Anyway, check that out. Check out the almond body butter. We have almond rainfall. We have almond, the other thing. Do we have almond castor blend? I don't think so. Maybe. Beats the hell out of me. Anyway, people love almond. They're mad about it. They think it's crazy. All right. For example, Kathy writes about the castor blend. Love it. Instant results. Absorbs into the skin so quickly. Use it on my face, neck, and chest. You can use it everywhere, by the way. I am a 61-year-old woman, and it works better than my very expensive blends. Go to tulipblooms.shop. Use promo code Shapiro. Free soap. Free soap! Ooh, I could do something on methylene blue. Is that long enough? That's what she said. All right, let me see here. Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. This is way too long. Also what she said. Jesus Christ. So Amanda Vollmer just wrote a treatise on methylene blue. Long story short, we are not fans of methylene blue. And that's how that works. All right, let's finish up with James Dellingpole. How's that sound? I'm not muted, am I? Minkles asks, did Patrick leave Badlands? Minkles, yes, I did. All right, next. We'll finish up with Dellingpole. Those of you who watched the Dave Smith and Douglas Murray debate, I am not one of them. I saw some clips. I'm not a big fan of Dave Smith, but I agree with his side, and I'm really not a fan of neocon slimeballs pretending to be smart. And that apparently was what Douglas Murray is. I don't have a lot of exposure to either one of them, though. From Dellingpole.substack.com, a pox on authority. Douglas Murray argued on Joe Rogan that we should trust the experts. Really? By James Dellingpole. Watching, or trying to watch, the painful encounter between Douglas Murray and Dave Smith on the Joe Rogan Show, I was reminded how much I dislike debates. I explained why in a long-form piece I wrote a while back called, "No, I Don't Want to Take Part in Your Stupid Debate." It's a good read. But if you haven't time, the short version goes something like this. Debates are the enemy of truth. They pretend that they are trying to get to the bottom of this or that important issue. But really all they tell you is which side is better at rhetorical trickery, or which side the moderator is secretly rooting for, or which side the audience is already biased towards, or which side is prepared to play the dirtiest. They're about as fair a way of achieving justice as trial by combat. I think debates stink. Douglas Murray is a model debater. I certainly wouldn't go up against him myself, but that's because he plays to win, not to make friends. To this end, he is more than happy to bring a knife to a fist fight, which is what he did on the Joe Rogan Show. Murray's mission, it was evident from the off, was to crush utterly his opponent a stand-up comedian and libertarian political commentator called Dave Smith. He did so using a technique which students of rhetorical fallacy will know as argument from indignation. That is, Murray's tone throughout was a mix of lofty disdain and of, but barely restrained, righteous outrage. Here, or something like it, was the message we got from Murray. I cannot believe that I find myself having to engage with someone so inferior to me, both morally and intellectually. But I shall endeavor, sigh, to be as polite as I possibly can under these extreme circumstances, and will do so by feigning to agree with my worm-like opponent on the occasional trivial point in order to make him feel slightly less uncomfortable and to show everyone else how reasonable and amenable and magnanimous I am. I think the British pronunciation is amenable, and I just want to apologize for not getting that. Or, if you want to visualize his approach, imagine someone in a periwig, knee breeches, and a gold-embroidered Louis XIV style silken coat, stooping reluctantly to deal with a turd that his King Charles spaniel has inconsiderately left on his host's lawn in the middle of a croquet match, there being no staff immediately available to remove it. It's a devastatingly effective technique because it puts your opponent instantly on the back foot. Rather than being treated as an equal addressing in good faith a different but valid point of view, your opponent is represented as someone whose position is so ugly and reprehensible, or so ignorant and incoherent, or both, that it barely deserves the courtesy of consideration. In this instance, rather than being given space to make his case, Dave Smith had to defend himself against the imputations that first, as a mere comedian, he simply wasn't qualified to be talking about grown-up subjects like history and politics, and that second, he was dangerously close to being an anti-Semite, a Holocaust denier, and a fan of Adolf Hitler, Vladimir Putin, evil generally, when you see someone whose opinions you dislike being given this brutal treatment. It's quite tempting to join the lynch mob and cheer on their destruction, but in this case I felt that Dave Smith was making some perfectly reasonable points and that he deserved a more generous hearing. I especially agreed with Smith on the subject of experts. Murray's argument appeared to be that we should defer to them on almost every occasion. For example, on the subject of Winston Churchill, he declared that we should listen to professionals like his current greatest living biographer, Andrew Roberts, and not to, quote, guys who are not historians like Darrell Cooper. Also, in Murray's view, we shouldn't listen to very, very discredited historians like David Irving. But what if the people Murray is insisting are the go-to experts have got it wrong? What if Ukraine and Gaza expert Murray is wrong about Ukraine and Gaza? What if Churchill expert Andrew Roberts has got it wrong about Churchill? It has been known to happen before, experts getting stuff wrong. As eminent and no doubt expert historian Lord Dacre once famously demonstrated when he verified as genuine the fake Hitler diaries. I've experienced this experts being wrong phenomenon on one or two occasions myself. Climate change, for example. After spending about 10 years looking into the subject, I came to the conclusion that all the award-winning expert climate scientists are a bunch of bullshitting liars, cheats, and shills. It's not that they are a teeny bit wrong about man-made climate change here and there. They are totally wrong about it in every last detail. The whole thing is a hoax, and a very expensive and destructive one at that. For more details, you can read the book I wrote on the subject, now available in an updated edition. The book is entitled Watermelons. Green on the outside, red on the inside. Then, of course, we had another handy example of the experts being wrong phenomenon in the form of the COVID vaccine, or as I prefer fondly to call it, the death jab. I remember well the period when it came out because all the experts, from my doctor to the chief medical officer on TV to the vaccine manufacturers, were telling me quite persistently that I had to take it. Apparently, it was safe and effective. It offered a high degree of protection against this deadly disease doing the rounds called COVID. And not to take it was an act of selfishness which might endanger the life of every granny in the neighborhood, and which by rights ought to render me liable for incarceration in an isolation camp, or which at the very least ought to prevent me from being allowed to go on holiday or shopping or anywhere else. Bizarrely, despite my not being at all an expert in either epidemiology or vaccinology, I somehow knew enough to resist all these blandishments and decide that the experts were all wrong. I refused to take the jab. So did one or two other ignorant chancers who, merely on the basis of stuff they'd read or heard on the internet from people who sometimes weren't even doctors, you'll never guess what happened to us. Yes, that's right. We all contracted this novel Chinese bioweapons lab-generated disease called COVID and died hideously shortly thereafter, blood bubbling out of our mouths as we gasped our last desperate words. If only I'd listened to the No, I jest. What actually happened is that despite having pointedly ignored the experts, we all ended up not getting any of the following conditions: myocarditis, blood clots, turbo cancer, reproductive issues, heart attacks, sudden death. If only the same could be said of the people who trusted the experts and did take the jabs. Sadly, that isn't the case. Some developed conditions that more or less ruined their lives. Others simply dropped dead, suddenly and unexpectedly. And those who were lucky enough to have escaped apparently unscathed must now live with the possibility that this could change at any moment. For the long-term consequences of these expert-approved, safe and effective jabs remain as yet unknown. Some unkind souls have suggested that people who took the vaccine have only themselves to blame. I disagree. We are culturally programmed to trust the experts, whether it's the gent in the tweed jacket on Antiques Roadshow evaluating that cracked vase great-great-great-uncle Jack brought back from the sack of the Summer Palace, or the diet guru on breakfast TV telling us how much kale we should eat, or the doctor telling us how cancerous that lump is. It takes a real effort of will to resist our ingrained inclination to go along with whatever plausible sounding prescription we're being sold by the people we assume know better than us, especially when, as during COVID, you're simultaneously being subjected to all manner of psychological warfare techniques to nudge you in the right direction. What the authorities did to us during COVID was so horrifying that I'm not sure many of us have yet really come to terms with it. Perhaps most of us never will, because to do so would involve accepting the almost unimaginable, that governments in every country in the world participated in a coordinated experiment designed to weaken, impoverish, immiserate, divide, maim, and kill their populace under the risibly inappropriate pretext of public health. And the reason they got away with it, in large part, was because of the misplaced faith so many of us have in those experts, to whom my old friend Douglas, against all evidence, insists we should continue to defer. That's Dellingpole, dellingpole.substack.com. There is Nat70 asks, is Patrick no longer with Badlands? I am no longer with Badlands. Check me out at readingepicthreads.substack.com. Readingepicthreads.substack.com. Also support me by getting yourself a free bar of soap at tulipblooms.shop. Just put the soap in your shopping cart. You have to buy something else. So buy a Epic Moisture Creamy Body Butter, buy a Rainfall, buy a Castor Blend, buy it all, and you get a free soap in addition. And for 10% off, use promo code Shapiro. So what I'm going to do, guys, is here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post this. Then I'm going to pull it off. So I'm going to take this live stream and I'm going to reread the part that was muted, and then I'm going to splice it in and then upload that for my 8 o'clock show or 9 o'clock show Eastern. So there you go. All right. Good show, guys. Let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.